Well, that's it, folks. It is game over. Prince Harry, the world's least happy millionaire, has reached the end of the road with his own father, King Charles. If you thought the explosive Netflix documentary series, the Oprah TV interview, and the book Spare had badly damaged Prince Harry's relationship with his family, then his latest car crash interview with the BBC is without doubt the final nail in the coffin. And it's my understanding that King Charles is apoplectic with rage about this latest intervention. He's embarrassed, he's upset, and he's angry. And therefore, any hope of a reconciliation between father and son is now gone forever. And as always, Harry wants to blame absolutely everyone except himself. But it seems the king, who has got to be the most patient father on the planet, has had enough. He's reportedly furious about what's happened and sees no way back with the H-bomb. Harry, the man known by his toxic wife as my husband. And it seems that Harry's flippant and heartless remarks about King Charles's life expectancy were the final straw. Comments which royal insiders have described as profoundly offensive, in very poor taste, and personally devastating to the king. And be clear that Charles's rage will be nothing compared to that of his brother William, who I doubt will ever speak to Harry again. If Harry thinks that life is uncomfortable now, just wait until William is monarch. Now, before we get to the fallout from the palace, which is absolutely massive, I've got a developing story for you that demonstrates just how hypocritical Prince Harry is. Now, this is courtesy of the Daily Mirror, which is great for royal coverage. During a visit to the UK last year, May of last year, Prince Harry, who's so worried about his security, isn't he? He's so afraid of his safety, even though he loves going to war zones and Nigeria, which is a nice country, but famously crime-ridden. Okay, so Harry last year is in the UK and he orders a takeaway, uses his mobile phone, orders a takeaway. These are these guys that come along, Who knows what the legal status of these delivery chaps is? I mean, look, my heart goes out to them. They're trying to make a living, They're on the minimum wage, if that. But they go around on these little motorbikes delivering pizzas and curries and all the rest of it, okay? There's a company in the UK, it's called Deliveroo. Deliveroo! Harry, last year, according to the Mirror, from trusted sources, ordered a Deliveroo takeaway to his friend's house in Chelsea. So old Harry, the H-bomb, is staying with his friend, Lord Charles Vivian, okay? Because Harry doesn't know anyone normal. He doesn't know anyone called Steve or Bob, It's all Lord this and Lady that. Lord Charles Vivian lives in an £8 million townhouse in Chelsea. £8 million, $12 million. That is actually slumming it for Harry. That's Harry kind of lowering himself, really, in that kind of accommodation. So he's round at his friend's house, Lord Charles Vivian, and Harry orders a Deliveroo takeaway. Like I said, these chaps, okay, that do the Deliveroo, that bring round the pizza, they're interesting people. They've got a curious background. They've got a quirky demeanor. They're an unknown quantity, The guy that turns up at your house with the margarita or the American hot or the lamb pasanda is a guy whose background is murky at best. All right? And Harry is quite happy to use his phone to call Deliveroo, this delivery company, and have some ne'er-do-well, who's, let's not speculate, but it's clearly a security risk, So this action drew furious criticism from former royal protection officers who quite rightly highlighted the contradiction between Harry's expressed concerns about his safety in the UK and allowing an unknown delivery person access to a private residence. Now, Ken Worf was Diana's former bodyguard. Ken Worf is a good friend of mine. He's a gentleman. He's been on my old TV show many times, and I know him personally. He's a gentleman. He, by the way, points out that if Princess Diana had royal security and not Mohammed Al Fayed's security, which was a drunk bodyguard, not even a bodyguard, just a bouncer, basically, Diana would still be here today. He's quite right. So Ken Worf has said that it is unbelievable that such a high-profile person who considers himself to be such a high security risk would allow themselves to have a Deliveroo driver arrive at a house with no idea who they are and what they are. It is just unthinkable, said Ken Worf. And by the way, Ken Worf has no sympathy for Prince Harry, the H-bomb. My husband. He's got no sympathy in terms of this battle with the UK government over royal security, because Ken Worf's had this crazy idea that because Prince Harry left the royal family, moved to another country, and then attacked the monarchy non-stop in return for millions of dollars, Ken thinks that therefore Harry doesn't quite justify armed royal protection to be paid for by the British taxpayer. Funny that. So the hypocrisy is stunning, but we know that Harry is not just the Duke of Sussex, he is the Duke of double standards. Got the old decaf going today, very nice. Splash of double cream, what do you think? Acceptable? Let me know in the comments. The interview, the fallout is nuclear. First of all, the interview was factually incorrect. It was self-indulgent and it was emotionally abusive. It was a catastrophe. So, first of all, the standout line. I mean, I've got a killer line. At the end of this video, I have the worst line, right? The very worst sentence from Harry at the end of this interview, which is the most damning and the most devastating. So, that is at the end. You will not believe the last line I'm going to leave you with that just sums up what he's up to and what his motivations are. Absolutely shocking. But the second worst line was that line about his father's cancer. The king is unwell. He's had cancer for almost best part of a couple of years. This is a real worry. Is he going to recover? Is he out of the woods? Is it being managed? I don't even want to speculate because I've got too much respect for the man. I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to pray that he is in the best hands medically and that he will recover, because I want him to be monarch until he's 100. I think he's doing such a good job as monarch. He stayed out of politics. He's navigated such choppy waters on behalf of this country. He's a decent man. He's an intelligent man. I really, really like Charles. And I've actually, unusually, I've grown to like him more since he became king. My affection for him and my estimation for him has actually grown. But this line about, I don't know, this is what Harry said to the BBC, I don't know how long my dad's got left. The language of that is heartless. This guy's got no empathy. Harry pretends to be this big, fluffy, emotional guy who's just wearing his heart on his sleeve. As Shakespeare would describe, a man more sinned against than sinning. I don't think Harry has got a heart. I don't think he has got empathy. I don't think he has got emotions. I think when he's on the verge of tears, which he always is, A, because he's the world's least happy millionaire, but B, because I think he's learnt from Meghan, right? All that crying and all that sort of the welling up. Poor me. Poor Prince Harry, world's least happy millionaire. I think that when he does that kind of tearful act, right? I think that's actually out of the Meghan playbook. I think it's another flex, isn't it? This crying business is, or the welling up, it's acting. It's Oscar worthy. It is a power play. And he's learned that from the missus. So I don't know how long my dad's got left. I don't like saying that sentence to you. I don't like to repeat it. That's how offensive it's so offensive. So do you want to hear that? When you're King Charles, do you want to hear your son say, I don't know how long my dad's got left, right? Because Charles will be hoping for another 2 decades. But Harry has basically, in a TV interview, given the guy days to live, right? Charles is trying to hold it all together, right? Charles is filling up his diary because he's the hardest working monarch. And he's a very committed man. I mean, the guy's seriously ill, but he's doing these international trips. He sees the Prime Minister once a week, Keir Starmer, which must take a personal toll. I mean, that's worse than the the medical treatment, isn't it? Trips to the hospital versus old Starmer turning up. Hello, Prime Minister. We're going to grow the economy by shrinking it. And we won't raise taxes except when we raise taxes for the highest level in 40 years. Poor old Charles. Don't you think they could spare him the visits from Sir Keir Starmer just to aid his recovery? To say, look, say to the Prime Minister, mate, have a break. 6 months, right? The King wants a little break, and then you can come back and start boring him to tears again. Right. So, Charles is busy. He's the monarch. He's the head of state of the United Kingdom. He's the head of the Commonwealth. And his diary is filling up. He's also a husband, a grandfather, a father, a brother. This guy is getting it done. And he's just trying to get on with it. And he's got his own son talking him down, saying, oh, my dad is basically on his way out. Charles doesn't want to hear that. That's not Charles's mentality. Charles has this pioneering spirit. He's thinking big. He's always thought big. He's thinking big for his future. I mean, this guy has achieved so much in his life. You know, they say that the royals are useless and don't do anything. Charles was ahead of the game with organic farming. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, he was talking about organic farming. And then people thought he was crazy. And now it's the mainstream. His concerns about the environment, his concerns about modern architecture, some of which is great, a lot of which isn't. And he was right to spark that debate. He's modernized the monarchy. He's slimmed it down. He's scrapped Prince Andrew, old Randy Andy's allowance, which is a good move, because what was Andy spending it on? Taking women of an easy nature out to nightclubs, probably. God knows what he was doing with the money. That old Lothario. So, but now, I mean, since his interview, Andrew is like the least bad royal. Andrew can't believe his luck, right? Because Andrew disgraces himself with the most awful company he's kept, and poor Virginia Giuffre, who's no longer with us, and all the rest of it, right? And Andrew thinks, I'm basically the worst royal. Prince Harry said, hold my beer. Because what I'm going to do is sue the British government, and I'm going to lose in the Court of Appeal, which is going to cost me $2 million, which even for Harry is a lot of cash. And then I'm going to run off to the BBC and do a me, pathetic interview, indulgent, obnoxious, full of lies. By the way, can I just point out how badly filmed the interview was? Have you seen that BBC interview? All right, basically, it's in and out of focus. Right, the BBC couldn't club together enough money to buy a decent camera to interview Prince Harry. It's a really bad recording. And I thought it was quite a soft interview from the interviewer, who was out of shot the whole time. So they could only afford one camera that patently didn't work. But the interview was not good. Unless maybe the reason why the quality was so grainy and why it was in and out of focus is because the cameraman was really struggling to get through the interview, right? The cameraman was losing the will to live, right? The cameraman's there and he's filming Harry and he's like... Right, the cameraman's like, make it stop. I think the cameraman had a hip flask. And I think he was just doing regular shots of bourbon just to get through that moan fest of Prince Harry. Humpy-dumpy-dumpy-dump, humpy-dumpy-dumpy-dump, the world's least happy millionaire, humpy-dumpy-dumpy-dump. So, he's basically given his old man days to live. It's offensive, it's horrific, it's emotionally insensitive. And then here's the other thing, right? He's imperiled not just his relationship with his father and the family, which is basically, it's over now, but he's risked his inheritance. It's possible, right, that King Charles could disinherit his son. It's not impossible. I have spoken to royal insiders, and it is not impossible that Harry could receive less fortune from his father's estate as a result of this profound disloyalty. And Meghan won't be happy. In that very, very sad, on that sad day when Charles passes on, which I hope is decades from now, and Meghan's sitting there going, we only inherited $1,000. Why is that, H? What happened? Oh, well, unfortunately, I slagged off my family for 10 years and gave my father days to live. No, I've got nothing. So he could get it disinherited. He may get less than William now. And do the palace at this point ramp up plans to remove HRH and Sussex titles? Should they do that? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Has he crossed the line? Is it time now? Because the nicey nice attitude, softly, softly approach to Harry is not working. So therefore, is it time for some tough love? Should the king remove HRH from Harry and Meghan, right? It was agreed that they wouldn't use the title, but Meghan doesn't care about that. And she's been calling herself HRH, even to her close friends. It's very easy to remove HRH. Okay, the mechanism is a simple one and it can be done by the king, and I think he should do this. He can issue a letters patent, which is a formal royal decree, and that removes the HRH styling, as it's called. We have a precedent for that in 1996. After their divorce, Princess Diana and Sarah Ferguson lost HRH by royal order. Harry and Meghan were trusted not to use it, and that trust was abused, and they carried on using it. But it's easily done, and I think that would be an amazing shot across the bows on the part of King Charles to do that. Just to give Harry the metaphorical clip round the ear that he should have had years ago. And then, should Harry and Meghan lose the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? I'd be very tempted for them to do that, because I'm upset that Meghan attacks the royal family and yet keeps those royal titles. So I'd quite like to see her stripped of that, and Harry, as punishment. It's just the rest of us, you and I, okay, if we do something bad, we feel the consequences, don't we? If it's in terms of the family, you do something that's obnoxious, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, they're gonna, be really angry with you, and life's not going to be comfortable. If you break the law, then the police will have a word about it. But Harry just acts with impunity. He thinks he can do whatever he likes. And therefore, but still keep Duke and Duchess of Sussex. It would be humiliating for them to lose it. And all you would need is an act of parliament. So the UK Parliament would pass legislation to remove what is essentially a hereditary peerage. A new act could be introduced through Parliament called the Duke of Sussex Title Removal Act. Would that be fantastic? Specifically aimed at Harry. So let me know in the comments if you think the titles should go. It would require legislation, but my God, what a mic drop that would be. Should we have a mic drop for that? For the Duke of Sussex Title Removal Act. If that's not a mic drop, I don't know what is. Alternatively, Harry could voluntarily relinquish the title, but I can think of a few million reasons why he's not going to. So in the interview, he blamed his father, saying that his dad could fix this issue of security. No, he can't. Because if Charles got involved in that, it would jeopardize the monarchy, because the king would then be influencing the judgment of the authorities. And that is against the rules, because the king is successful and popular and much loved because he doesn't intervene. He is a figurehead. He's a representative. He's the head of state. But he's not the acting head of state. That is the government. That's so it's not true. It's a lie that his father could have done something. Does Harry want to bring down the monarchy? Because if Charles intervened, that would damage the monarchy, threatening its future. Is that what Harry wants? Because I know Meghan wants it. Meghan, be clear about this, folks. Please be abundantly clear. Be in no doubt whatsoever that Meghan wants to bring down the British monarchy. She absolutely, categorically does. Why? Because she's a destructive person. She does disrupt her. She is toxic. She's vicious. She's done damage to the royal family. She'd love to take it down. What an ego trip that would be. As she pours lavender oil on her damp towels and puts them in the refrigerator. By the way, it's ironic, right? She would love to bring down the royal family, but she would still keep calling herself the Duchess of Sussex, Her Royal Highness. People would be like, wait a minute, the monarchy is closed down. Buckingham Palace has been sold off for public housing. Why are you still Her Royal Highness? Oh, because I'm a princess and I'm the Duchess of Sussex. You're welcome. Absolutely horrific. Also, the interview on the BBC by Harry was factually inaccurate because he claims that the royal household made this decision to reduce his security status and to withdraw the armed protection when he's in the UK. That's not true. That's RAVEC, who are the authorities, and they are experts. They are military people, they are police, they are lawyers, they're government officials, and they decide, not the royal household and not King Charles. Harry's always going around talking about misinformation, isn't he? You know those speeches he makes about all the misinformation in the world? Well, I think Harry's the king of misinformation himself. So how dare he? Who is he to cast aspersions on the accuracy of other people's accounts of things when Harry himself can't be trusted? I don't believe a word that guy says. And now, when he talks about how this was an establishment stitch-up, he's actually turning into a conspiracy theorist, isn't he? I think Harry needs to have his own podcast. You know, one of those kind of wacky out there podcasts. And you could call the podcast Planet Harry, where he basically just, riffs on all of the strange conspiracies where they're out there to get him. Poor old Harry. The interview was indulgent because it was quite clear that whilst he pretended this is about his safety and his security, which is, by the way, it's all academic, because Ken Worf explained that when Harry's in the UK, he'll be protected. He will be protected. Harry will be protected because he will be with his family. He'll be in the UK. As long as he gives them warning, there's no way that the UK authorities are going to let this guy face harm. Of course not. It ain't going to happen. So this is all a non-story anyway. And remember, Ken Worf, who knows royal security inside out, has said that Harry's legal action against the UK authorities is unjustified, foolish, and wrong. And so Ken Worf, a man who's been responsible for the safety of royals for decades, his approbation, his confidence, his word is enough for me. But I think this isn't about Harry's safety. I think it's about his ego. It's about his self-image. It's about his status. It is about his position in the royal family. What's happened in 2020 when he decided to leave the royal family, give up his royal duties, is that he came into contact with something that he's unfamiliar, with which he's unfamiliar and that he doesn't like, which is reality. Reality runs up your spine and the pieces finally fit. There you go. The One, an underrated Elton John hit from the early 90s. So here's the thing. He's encountered reality. He doesn't like it. And he feels humiliated by the fact that he can't go around with his entourage and he hasn't got a SWAT team of soldiers around him whenever he comes to the UK. That's what he wants. He wants that status. He can't bear to be Harry Windsor, citizen of the world. He can't bear that. But the irony is that's what he chose. But now he doesn't like it. So I think that's what this is about. It's about his ego. It's about the embarrassing lack of status that he now has because of his own decision. He still wants to be the big man. And in the interview, he was boasting about how in 2020 he was deemed to be the highest risk. He was the most at risk of any royal, including Queen Elizabeth. What is this? A competition? And how dare you invoke the memory of Queen Elizabeth at this point? This poor woman is not in a position to defend herself. And what would she think now about his behavior and about his actions? So Harry's been confronted with reality. He doesn't like it. The interview was emotionally abusive, as I said. How long has my dad got? I don't know how long he's got. He doesn't call me. He won't talk to me. Moan, moan, moan. And Charles is trying to keep the show on the road. Do you know what Charles is busy with at the moment? Whilst Harry indulges in his pity party, Charles is trying to prepare for the VE celebrations. Do you know what they are? VE stands for Victory in Europe. Because this year will be 80 years, an 80-year anniversary of the end of the Second World War, right? The greatest moment in the history of the world. The end of the Second World War, the defeat of fascism. What a moment to celebrate that. Charles is focused on the VE celebrations and Harry is focused on himself. Now, a palace source has told the Telegraph, which is also great for royal stories, there's nothing that can be trusted on the part of Harry to remain private. Okay, so Harry cannot be trusted to keep things private, says this royal insider. As for there being no contact, well, Harry has proved yet again why that is. The Telegraph notes that any chance of reconciliation between the King and Harry is all but lost. Previously, some hoped that after the court case concluded, father and son would reconnect, but Harry's decision to air intimate reflections on the King's health ensures, and this is a direct quote, ensures that they cannot go back to how things once were. Harry said, "My father should step out of the way," implying that the King or his staff were personally blocking security support. Imagine talking about your father like that. My father should step out of the way. Now, not only is he your father, and I had great respect for my father and would never have spoken to him like that, and he was a colossus of a man, I especially wouldn't talk about my father like that. If my father was the king of the United Kingdom, my father should step out of the way. Absolutely shocking. His claims that the king could have decided all this are complete nonsense. The palace protocol is very clear that the king cannot interfere in government decisions. But spoiled crybaby Harry, of course, doesn't accept that. But imagine that the language, my father should step out of the way. Before we go, it gets worse, folks. In the interview, right, Harry said, because he's always the victim and it's never his fault, "I wish someone had told me that there was no way I was going to win this case beforehand." Well, I could have told you because I was on TV when you launched your legal actions against newspapers and against the UK authorities for your security. And I said, this is a mistake, you will lose, and it will cost you a fortune, and it will destroy what's left of your reputation. Well, even a broken clock is right twice a day, because that was correct. I was right about that. So do you remember that ridiculous court action against the Mail on Sunday, which is a world-class newspaper? And he sued them. And then he changed his mind and he withdrew the legal action, which cost him $1 million. And then he appeals against this decision regarding his security. And he says, "I wish someone had told me that there was no way to win beforehand." Well, it's quite clear that this was ill-advised. The king didn't want his son suing the British government. Do you realise what a position that puts the monarch in? So it's denial. And it's stupidity. And it is naivety. And it's just thickness, isn't it? I'm afraid that Harry is a cabbage short of a flower bed, isn't he? He's a bratwurst short of a butcher's, is what he is. He's a prize numpty. So there you go. One major palace concern, as reported by the Telegraph, is that any information shared with Harry will very likely be leaked to the public. This guy is not trusted now by his brother, his father, his sister-in-law, his stepmother, and the royal household. The trust is gone. A major concern is that any information shared with Harry will likely be leaked to the public. That includes health matters, thoughts, conversations, the law, security, inner feelings. None of it is safe. So let's get to the very, very worst aspects of this interview now. First of all, Harry described his children as my father's grandchildren. So he's leveraging emotion there, right? He's exploiting the emotional aspect of that relationship, which ain't going to work. Too little, too late. If Archie and Lilibet were his father's grandchildren, he'd have seen a lot more of them. And Harry said, duty of care has been thrown out of the window. Who is he? I mean, talk about throwing stones in glass houses. And then, most egregiously, he made a reference to Princess Diana, who was tragically killed, as we know, in Paris in 1997. He said, some people want history to repeat itself. See, he's weaponizing the memory of his late mother, Diana, right? Nothing's off the table for this guy. He's desperate now. He's desperate. Some people want history to repeat itself. Guys, I mean, I don't know how to put this delicately, but he's trying to say that there are people in the royal household who want him to not be on the planet. I'm just going to use gentle language like that because of YouTube's sensitivity, and also it's a family show. But he thinks that there are people in the royal... He's so paranoid and he's so detached from reality that he thinks that there are members of the royal family that want Harry to no longer be on the planet, if you know what I mean. Or that something terrible and tragic should befall him. Now, look, you know that I have my daily rants about Harry and Meghan, but they're human beings. I want them to be as safe as anything. As anything. Okay? Harry is not a, dictator that's responsible for carnage. He's just as... What is it? Do you remember that line from Life of Brian? He's not the Messiah. He's just a very naughty boy. No one wishes ill harm on Harry. All we want is for him to accept the consequences of his actions. Anyway, so some people, he says, want history to repeat itself in reference to Diana's tragic passing. Now, Prince William was not named, but was clearly implicated in this remark. Some members of my family will never forgive me for writing a book. Of course, they will never forgive me for lots of things, he said. And he dared to invoke the memory of his mother and allow a perception to take hold that maybe he's talking about William, who lost his mother in 1997 as well, wanting the same fate for Harry. There's no way he wouldn't. It's unforgivable. William is angry, he's upset, he's devastated, but William is not a psycho. William is not murderous. Of course not. William wants what I want, and William wants what most of you want. Let me know in the comments, which is for Harry to wake up and smell the coffee and accept that you've been led by this rather manipulative and toxic woman into hating your family and your country and the institution of the monarchy. You've been coaxed into leaving the United Kingdom, giving up your royal role, therefore losing the security, losing the financial support, attacking your family for money. You've done all of these things. You've just got to accept that now. You've made your bed. You've got to lie in it. But instead, he evokes Diana, and he allows an implication that somehow William has a dark wish for his own brother. Please tell me that's not what he thinks. Please tell me in the comments that I'm wrong, and I'm praying I've got to be wrong. He can't have been invoking William, can he? Will you please be my brain on this? Because I'm horrified. The interview was a smirking interview. It was a smug fest. It was arrogant. It involved crocodile tears. It was ugly. It was embarrassing. It was packed with lies and misinformation. It was self-indulgent. It was emotionally insensitive. By the way, do you think I should get off the fence? What do I really think about this interview? Okay. Before we go, final. He said, he had the cheek to say, by the way, he's very good at Orwellian doublespeak. Do you know what that is? That George Orwell had this idea of the state in 1984, the government, the ruling big brother, the state, right? The party would say one thing, but then they meant the opposite. Okay. Orwellian doublespeak. And his Orwellian doublespeak in this interview was, my life is public service. He said that with a straight face. No, Harry, your life is self-service. So here we go. This is the final absolute humdinger that I've got for you. Are you ready for this? And I guarantee you it'll be worth the wait. He was asked who these people are that wish harm on him, right? That would like history to repeat itself, that would like a repeat of the Diana tragedy, right? He thinks there are people, maybe his brother, that think that. So he was asked, who are those people that wish harm on him, actual harm in the royal household? And he said the following: I'm not going to share this. So far, so good. Good. That's good, isn't it? I'm not going to share this. That's end of show, end of the Mark Dolan show. I can go for a swim in Thames after this. I'm not going to share this. But then he carries on at this point. I'm not going to share this at this point. So what does that mean? Well, it's war, folks. at this point quite clearly means either another interview, another podcast, another Netflix series, or may God help us, another book. Spare 2, the worst sequel since the all-female reboot of Ghostbusters. I'm not going to share which members of the royal family wish harm on me at this point. And with those 3 words, at this point, right, that is a threat. That is an act of war. That is intent. And with those 3 words, it is over for Harry and the Windsors. Harry is disloyal to his core, which is why it's totally understandable that King Charles has now disowned him. They say blood is thicker than water, but it seems no one is thicker than Humpty Dumpty, world's least happy millionaire, Prince Harry. Folks, stay tuned for more. Do subscribe and like, please, and hit the notification bell because I often do emergency shows. Thank you for your amazing support for this brand new channel. I'm loving our daily conversations. I love the comments. I read all of them. Couldn't do this without you. We are building a media revolution together. Let's keep it going. And what's it about, by the way? Well, I just say what I think, okay? I listen to what you say. It's a conversation. I represent you. I drop the truth bombs. I'm not afraid. I never have been, and I never will. And I'm especially confident these days because I've got you with me. Okay, folks, can't wait for the next video. I can't say go and have a good day because we're either being watched in South America, North America, Asia, Africa, the Antipodes, Europe. Remember Europe? Those were the days. So we are global, so wherever it's, so whatever you're up to, could be the middle of the night, you could be having your breakfast now, and hopefully you've spat out your tea at hearing what Prince Harry's been up to. But whatever you're doing, go and have a great time, go and have a good day, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye for now.